my name is Jessica Schultz, and I made this video for my clients and for people who are interested in just stretching out a little bit after a hard day. So it's going to focus on some of the common places where we're tight and hold some tension. We're going to be using the foam roller. I just have a basic old white one, but you could certainly get something with a solid core or something from a Pilates company as well. So we're going to start with some chest openers. So most people are commonly tight in their pecs. So you want to place the edge of the roller close to you, and then you sit on it almost as if you're going to fall off the edge, and then lay down onto your back. So you want to feel like your sacrum is supported, your tailbone is on the roller, as well as your head. So make sure your head isn't off. And just start by opening the arms out to the sides and just holding this stretch for a little bit. Your feet are about hip-width apart, toes are on the floor. And what happens commonly when people are tight in their chest is we actually can't open and externally rotate in our shoulders. So we often start gripping in our mid-backs. So the body, in an effort to open, because we can't open here, starts to do this to open here. So even as you hold this stretch, start paying attention to the lower ribs on your back and try to keep those in contact with the roller. You may feel like you may be unable to stretch as deep, but it's actually going to be safer for your low back. You don't want to trade tension here for compensation in the low back here. So you're not gripping, you're not pressing down, but you're trying to stay long and you're trying to make sure that you're not arching. So just try to picture those back ribs. If you watched my breathing video, kind of on that mid part of your back, the thoracic, that's where you want to feel heavy and pressing into the roller. And then you're just breathing easy, gentle, open breaths. You're welcome to stay here, and then I'll give you some variations for your arms if you'd like to go a little bit deeper. But if this is enough, just stay here. And then start by making field goal arms. So you have your elbows bent at 90 degrees, and you're floating your arms off the mat. Most people can't touch the floor here, and that's okay. It should just increase the stretch a little bit. Then start rotating in your shoulders. So you're tilting in your shoulders so your fingertips go down towards the floor, and then coming back up, and then tilting so your elbow goes down towards the floor. So by using your elbow or your fingertips as the landmark, you're just taking your shoulders through internal and external rotation. It's normal to hear some crunching in your shoulders. Fancy word for that is crepitus. And it just means that there might be some old scar tissue or maybe some other things that you're breaking up. As long as it's not painful, it's okay if you're hearing some clicks. And just continue to rotate through those positions. If one of them is hard, you can eliminate it. And if you find that especially the fingertips down makes you want to arch, just bring your awareness again to that part of your back. Again, you're welcome to just stay here or in the previous open chest position. Or if you want to go a little bit deeper, try to keep a slight external rotation in your shoulders. So that's a little bit of the elbow pointing up towards the ceiling. And then start bringing your elbows in next to your ribs, back to where you started at the field goal position, and then up above your head. And again, paying attention to that mid part of your back and the lower ribs. And you're just gliding between those positions. So coming in close, coming back to field goal, and then coming back above the head. Feel free to pause in any of the positions too if they feel like they're a little tight. You could hold that position and go back into the rotation of the fingertips and the elbows. And just trying to keep that external rotation. So that idea that the elbow is just a little bit higher than the fingertips. Even if it's just an idea, and you're not actually doing it, just thinking about trying to keep that elbow elevated is a really good opening for the pecs. And it's really good for our shoulder rotation. So then interlace your fingers for our final variation here, and you bring your hands above your head. Just by doing this is a bigger stretch. So again, pay attention to those ribs, make sure they're nestled into the roller, And then just draw little circles above your head. So you can imagine you're drawing a halo, but what you're really thinking about is the movement in your shoulders. And this can cause the body, the torso, sometimes to shift on the roller, so it might bring some awareness into your core. And then reverse that circle. And again, if you find that any of these aren't serving you, you can eliminate, go back to the previous exercise. But this can help a little bit in that upper back, try to break up some tension there. Go back to field goal, go back to the first hang, and it should feel a little bit easier. You should feel a little more open through the chest, and you should hopefully feel a little more dropping here too, through that mid-back. So to dismount from this position, you actually just roll off the side of the roller. There's no great graceful way to do it. Let the roller go off to the side. And then come onto your back in about the same position that you were in. So when you're on the roller, you're pressing into your fascia. That's a connective tissue in between your skin and your muscles. So very similar to giving yourself a massage, you want to give some time for everything to release back, fluids to return. So it's just as important to rest after you're on the roller as it is to be on the roller. You may feel like you've made a hollow in the middle of your mat and a divot as you feel your vertebrae start to release. And just breathe. So another common place that we hold our tension is in our legs. So I want to just do a couple of rolling that we can do some techniques to help open up the hamstrings and the IT band and then the front of the hip as well. So since you just rolled, just be extra careful, roll to your side and use your hands to push yourself up. So to roll through the hamstring, take the roller, place it underneath your knees and place the backs of the knees on the roller. Take your hands behind you. It is a little bit of a core workout. You're going to lift your bottom up and then roll your hamstrings back and forth. This one generally isn't too intense. It can be a nice overall massage for the back of the leg. You're trying to stay away from the back of the knees. So you're not directly rolling on that. And it is a core workout as well because you have to really support yourself up here. After doing that a few times, I like to do a slight internal rotation of the hip because your hamstring has 4 heads to it. It's not one muscle. And sometimes the medial or lateral might be more tight. And then same thing, turning out a little bit to get a little more towards the outer edge of the hamstring. If you feel a place that has a particular knot or is really tight, you can stay in it and roll a little back and forth. So if you're a little tighter up towards the glutes or a little more down towards the knees, you can shift in that position. And if you're really tight, you can just walk, lift your bottom and lower your hands, lift your bottom, lower your hands. So you listen to your body, use your awareness when you're on the roller. And then to stretch through the front of the hip, come onto your hands and knees. And you'll place the roller above your knees, come down onto your forearms. A really similar motion, just on the opposite side of the body. And same thing, you're just walking back and forth. This one takes a lot of core support as well. So make sure it feels okay for you to be elevated in this position. Generally, if you can hold a forearm plank, you're okay doing this exercise. Same thing, you're staying away from the top of the kneecap. And then, as well, go into that little bit of internal rotation and do a few rolls that way. And a little bit of external rotation and doing a few rolls that way. And again, you may find you just get some benefit from going into internal-external, either in the upper part of the hip or the lower part. You're trying to stay away from the pubic bone. You don't want to be directly rolling on that area. Just lower the knees to dismount from there. Use your hands. And then, when to finish with everybody's favorite, little IT band stretch. So, really no right or wrong way to do this one. You will know it when you're in it. It is kind of unavoidable, this sensation. Bottom leg is straight, top leg comes over. I like to start actually in the divot a little bit on the side of your hip. There's like a little hole, and you can just roll back and forth here a little bit. So we're actually getting a little bit into glute med, which can be very tight. And as you roll back, you're getting to gluteus maximus, biggest muscle in your butt, and hold a lot of tension. And just like we did with the other stretches, if you find a place that feels tight, you can stay there and roll back and forth on it a little bit. So we haven't gotten quite into IT band yet, but we're just warming it up. And then similar to the stretch we did for the front of the quad, this next stretch, you're basically in a forearm side plank, and you just roll your leg, trying to keep it elevated off the floor towards the knee and rolling it back. Now ideally you go fairly slow, and if you find places of tension, you can kind of go back and forth on it a little bit, try to loosen it up. And you can get a little bit into the front of the quad as well. So you can see here I'm pivoting, so I'm going a little bit more forward with my chest towards the ground, because I tend to have a little bit more soreness on my right side towards the front edge of my kneecap. So you can certainly follow that line. It is just good to listen. If it feels a little tight, it's probably a good place to be. And then you want to dismount when you're closest to your hip, bending the knee underneath you, and we'll switch you to the other side. It's very common to be different from side to side, so you want to roll without any preconceived notions of what you may find. And then same thing, just coming down a little bit. So I'm not on my waistband, I'm closer down, almost on the side of the hip. If you're familiar with side leg kicks in Pilates, we're about in that setup position, but going back and forth. And then same thing, just using the hands, bringing the other leg in front, sliding up the leg, and sliding down. Again, trying to be slow if you can. And pausing if you might find a place that feels a little bit more tight. And rolling a little to the front. And you can even roll a little to the back as well. And then lower that knee, come to seated, and you can finish with just a nice easy child's pose. Kind of adds a stretch for the back as well as an opening for the chest. Just a nice little finisher. So you just place the hands on the roller, curl into the low back. Trying to let your head rest on the mat, your forehead if you can. Inhale. And exhale. Just breathe into your low back. Try to release the shoulders. One more breath. And then come up to seated. So those are just a few things you can do. Open the chest, hips, a little bit through the front of the leg and the side of the leg. Just really common places that we hold tension. It's just a nice way to treat yourself at the end of the day. It's also a great way to just relax and give yourself a little bit of what my clients like to call Pilates dessert. Thank you.